President Yoon Suk-yeol is in Paris, and along with K-pop stars, the president will make a speech to boost South Korea's bid to host the 2030 World Expo in Busan. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing, agreeing on the need to stabilize U.S.-China relations. South Korean crypto fugitive Do Kwon has been sentenced to 4 months in prison in Montenegro for passport forgery. Good afternoon. We begin in Paris, where President Yoon Suk-yeol has arrived to boost South Korea's bid to host the 2030 World Expo in Busan. The president himself will take part in the presentation along with K-pop stars. He's also set to hold talks with his French counterpart. Our top office correspondent Oh Soo-young reports from Paris.
President Yoon Suk-yeol is preparing to highlight South Korea's vision for the future, its promise and its commitment to giving back and standing in solidarity with the global community. That's according to the presidential office, a day before Yoon delivers a speech in Paris to boost South Korea's bid to host the World Expo 2030 in the port city of Busan. Along with K-pop stars like Psy and Aespa's Karina, the president on Tuesday will take part in a fourth bidding presentation at the General Assembly of the Bureau International des Expositions, the final chance for South Korea to make its case before the member states elect the host country in a secret ballot in November. The port city has focused on transforming our world, navigating towards a better future, with sub-themes being sustainable living with nature, technology for humanity, and a platform for caring and sharing. Busan is competing against Saudi Arabia's Riyadh, Italy's Rome, and Ukraine's Odessa to host the international fair. Touching down in the French capital on Monday, President Yoon first met with Korean nationals in Paris, calling on them to back Busan's bid for the World Expo. Also celebrating 137 years of relations between the two countries, Yoon further emphasized those citizens' role in building value-based cooperation between the two liberal democracies.
오늘날 한국과 프랑스는 자유, 인권, 법치의 보편적 가치를 공유하는 파트너입니다. 앞으로도 양국은 활발한 문화 인적 교류를 바탕으로 첨단 기술 분야와 글로벌 어젠다에서 협력을 강화해 나갈 것입니다.
To lay the groundwork for future collaboration, Yoon on Tuesday will also hold a dialogue with innovative minds at a startup campus, Station F.
So these universal values are important in dealing with the past, but also the present, and for the future, giving the issues and the configuration of the world now, US-China, trade wars, all sorts of crises. There's a need, based on these values, to dialogue further, and that the dialogue could be brought by next generation.
President Yoon has said it's time to upgrade the relationship, which became a comprehensive partnership almost 20 years ago, to collaborate more extensively across urgent issue areas. His talks with President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday at the Elysee Palace will span North Korea, the war in Ukraine, to tech cooperation and economic security. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Paris.
Accompanying President Yoon Suk-yeol during his speech in Paris are K-pop stars and renowned leaders in academia. According to President spokesperson Do Kwon, K-pop girl group Aespa's Karina will join virtually along with star soprano and ambassador for Busan's bid to host the 2030 World Expo, Jo Soo-mi. Among the on-site speakers is singer Psy, who has helped spread K-pop and unite global citizens through it. Psy has a special connection with Paris, having performed his hit song Gangnam Style in front of a flash mob crowd in the French capital. The spokesperson added that there will be a few experts who will speak while not revealing their identities. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing. No tangible outcome, but the two both agreed that the world needs stable China-U.S. relations. Choi Min-jung reports.
Washington and Beijing have both agreed on the need to stabilize their relationship. At a meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Monday, Chinese President Xi Jinping underlined the importance of progress being made through the secretary's visit.
Face-to-face interaction should always be based on mutual respect and sincerity. I hope that through this visit, Mr. Secretary, you will make more positive contributions to stabilizing China-US relations.
Speaking at a press briefing after his meeting with Xi, Blinken said senior-level talks between the two sides must continue.
In every meeting, I stress that direct engagement and sustained communication at senior levels is the best way to responsibly manage our differences and ensure that competition does not veer into conflict. And I heard the same from my Chinese counterparts.
The secretary also called on Beijing to use its influence to press Pyongyang to put a stop to further provocations in the region. He insisted that China is in a unique position to encourage North Korea to act responsibly. However, it remains to be seen whether the two sides can resolve long-standing issues involving Taiwan, trade, and human rights. Despite the challenge, Blinken stressed that it is the responsibility of both countries to find a path forward, and it is in the interest of the world that they do so. The White House said Blinken had candid, substantive, and constructive conversations with the Chinese leader and called the talks a good step forward.
And what we want is competition, not conflict. We've been very clear about that. But again, I think it is a good step forward. We believe it's a good step forward for Secretary to have a constructive conversation with President Xi.
Although no major breakthrough was made, pundits hope that Blinken's visit could pave the way for more bilateral meetings, perhaps even a summit in the future between Biden and Xi. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Heated talks over Japan's Fukushima wastewater release are ongoing here in South Korea. The government said it opposes instigating public anxiety or provocative expressions apparently targeting the main opposition. Our political correspondent Han Song-woo reports.
Without referring to him by name, the South Korean government has asked the chairman of the main opposition, Democratic Party of Korea, Lee Jae-myung, to refrain from using expressions like nuclear wastewater to refer to the radioactive water Japan plans to start discharging from Fukushima into the Pacific Ocean this summer.
Choosing to use words like that stimulate excessive and unnecessary anxiety among the public, and the contraction in consumption that comes with it can inflict irreversible damage on fishermen and the fisheries industry as a whole.
Vice Minister of Oceans and Fisheries Song Sang-gun added during Monday's regular briefing on the Fukushima wastewater issue that recent news articles reporting that the contaminated water can reach the East Sea 5 to 7 months after being discharged is not true. His words were echoed by the head of Seoul National University's Research Institute of Oceanography, Jo Yang-gi.
Due to the large-scale circulation of seawater, it's estimated the radioactive water released from Fukushima will reach the waters of South Korea in about 10 years if it moves along the ocean currents.
But should the wastewater reach the coastal waters of Jeju in 7 months, as suggested by the Helmholtz Association of German Research Centers in Germany, Director Cho said that the concentration levels of the radioactive material there would be 1 trillionth of the levels found near the shores of Fukushima.
We're interpreting it as the near equivalent to the concentration levels of a drop of ink dropped into the Han River that is completely diluted after being dispersed underwater.
Data from the Korea Customs Service, meanwhile, showed that South Korean imports of Japanese seafood, in terms of amount, plunged by more than 30% last month compared to May of last year, likely in large part due to contamination concerns as the Fukushima wastewater release approaches. In response to such concerns, the government and the ruling People Power Party agreed during a policy consultation meeting on Sunday to increase the number of sites testing seawater radioactivity levels from the current 92 locations to 200. Han Song-woo, Arirang News.
South Korean crypto fugitive Do Kwon has been sentenced to 4 months in prison in Montenegro for passport forgery. A Montenegro court on Monday handed down the sentence to the disgraced co-founder of Terraform Labs and one of his aides. The two were arrested as they attempted to travel to Dubai with fake passports back in March. They denied the charges during previous hearings. Earlier this month, the court granted bail to both on the condition that they each pay roughly $430,000. This comes as South Korea and the United States are both seeking Do Kwon's extradition. It is still unclear where he will be extradited once he has completed his sentence. The newly launched savings account for young people in South Korea is proving popular. According to the Financial Services Commission on Tuesday, the Youth Leap account has attracted 240,000 applicants since it opened last Thursday. The government-backed program offers a savings account to those aged between 19 and 34 with a maximum annual interest rate of 6%. Users can save up to 50 million won, or around $39,000 over the course of 5 years with a maximum deposit of 700,000 won per month. Eligibility depends on personal income, and applicants can apply through 11 banking apps between 9 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. The world is getting hotter with rising sea levels and carbon pollution getting worse. Our Shin Se-byuk explains the indicators that show the unprecedented danger of climate change.
The world is getting hotter and is already 1.2 degrees Celsius warmer than in pre-industrial times, getting closer to the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold set in the Paris Climate Agreement in 2015. As concerns over climate change are mounting, CNN published 4 charts using scientific data that are causing alarm bells to ring. According to scientists, spiking temperatures, oceans heating up to record levels, all-time high carbon pollution, and all-time low Antarctic ice levels are of the greatest concern. First, the global temperature spike. This year is shaping up to be one of the hottest years on record. Data released by the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service last week show the first 11 days of June saw the highest temperatures on record. It was also the first time in June that temperatures breached pre-industrial levels by more than the global warming threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Second, rising ocean surface temperatures that show no sign of stopping. In the past few years, ocean surface temperatures have been climbing to an alarming level. Ocean warming poses fatal consequences to marine and coral life. Last year, the world's oceans broke heat records for the 4th consecutive year. And according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, last month was the hottest May on record for the world's oceans since record-keeping began in 1850. On May 12th this year, average ocean temperatures hit 20.93 degrees. That's almost 0.3 degrees higher than the year before, and 0.66 degrees hotter than the 1982 to 2011 mean. Third, record low Antarctic sea ice. NASA says sea ice around the isolated continent in February this year reached its lowest extent since records began 44 years ago to below 1.8 million square kilometers, some 130,000 square kilometers below the previous record low set just the year before. Such a decline could cause severe harm to the continent's wildlife, including penguins, as they rely on the ice for hatching eggs and feeding their babies. Last but not least, all-time high carbon pollution levels. Levels of carbon dioxide in the air hit a record of 424 parts per million in May, more than 50% higher than in pre-industrial times. Scientists from the University of California in San Diego, who released the data, said in a statement that the figures will only climb further into territory, quote-unquote, not seen for millions of years. The world is heating up and tackling climate change has become more crucial than ever. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
The United Nations has adopted the world's first international treaty for the conservation of the high seas. According to the United Nations in New York on Monday, participating countries signed the agreement for the protection and sustainable use of biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction. This comes after more than 15 years of efforts and is the first multilateral treaty for protecting biodiversity in international waters. It covers the 2/3 of the Earth's oceans that don't fall under national jurisdiction. Under the treaty, countries will work together to manage the deep sea and marine protected areas. More than 50 countries, including South Korea, have already signed the convention, with other countries expected to do so shortly. A government-backed Korean language institute will be available in 6 more countries starting as early as next month. The Sejong Institute will open schools in Peru, Malawi, Cote d'Ivoire, Iceland, Austria, and Slovenia. South Korea's Cultural Ministry announced on Tuesday that the institute will expand to these countries due to increased demand for the Korean language amid the global popularity of the Korean movies, dramas, and music. For anyone wishing to learn the Korean language and culture in those countries, programs will be offered from July. The Sejong Institute plans to have 248 locations around the world, offering Korean language and cultural programs by the end of this year. With K-pop gaining huge popularity across the world, K-pop idols are also evolving like this girl group Blackswan, with all 4 members having different nationalities, and none of them are South Korean. Our Kim Jung-sil has his story.
Meet the next generation K-pop girl group Blackswan.
안녕하세요, 블랙선입니다.
Starting with leader Fatu, who's from Belgium, members Sria, Envy, and Gabby come from India, the US, and Brazil. Even though none of the members were born in Korea, Blackswan got its training in Korea, and the members sing in Korean just like any other K-pop group. I asked them why they wanted to get into K-pop.
At that time when I was 15, I was going through a very hard time mental-wise. But while watching Shiny 선배님들, they gave me back a lot of happiness. And K-pop being that genre, I was like, you know what? If I could be able to do this for someone else who is going through the same thing I went through, that'd be amazing.
But it wasn't all a bed of roses on the road to becoming a group, especially the language gap.
There is so many ways to say the same thing that it was harder than I was expecting, the Korean, for sure. And training was also hard.
Other than like the physical and mental, I just felt it was very lonely sometimes, especially at the beginning because I didn't know much.
All their hard work didn't go unnoticed, as after Blackswan released its much-anticipated single, Karma, it hit 4.5 million views on YouTube in 1 month.
Okay, 1, 2, show me what you like.
And it was filmed in member Suria's hometown in India.
I was so glad that we were able to shoot in India, in Odisha, and we were able to show our culture, one of our cultures, dance.
Representing K-pop, but also their own countries, Blackswan hopes to become global pop artists using K-pop as a stepping stone. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Farming in South Korea is now facing challenges due to disappearing honeybees. But farmers here in the country have found a way to use the common carder bee for pollination, especially for melons. Lee Eun-jin has a report.
This is a honeybee farm in Iksan City, Jeollabuk-do Province. Last year, this farm sold 80 hive boxes of pollinating honeybees. But this year, the farm is struggling not only with bee sales, but also honey collection.
We've tried different bees to collect acacia honey, but it was unsuccessful due to damage from the climate and ticks.
Farmers have been trying to find alternative ways, but melon farming, which needs pollinating bees, has struggled.
Honeybees are twice as expensive as last year and are difficult to find.
The latest solution that farmers have found is using a species of bumblebee called the common carder bee. Results so far have been better than what farmers had expected.
With honeybees disappearing, we tested pollination with the carder bees. Surprisingly, there has been no difference.
Research by the Rural Development Administration showed similar findings. But what was key is the number of bees and hive boxes. For example, a 660 square meter melon farm should only use 2 hive boxes and 150 to 200 carder bees.
With the decrease in the number of bees, we are trying to develop new ways to more efficiently use a smaller number of bees for farming.
No clear reason has been identified behind the disappearance of the honeybees, and it seems unlikely that this problem will resolve itself anytime soon. Alternative ways will need to be researched, of which the first step has been to use the different species of bees that are available. 이은진, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the North Atlantic Ocean, a major search and rescue operation is underway for a missing submersible that was taking tourists to the wreckage of the Titanic. The U.S. Coast Guard said on Monday that contact was lost with the submersible 1 hour and 45 minutes into its dive the previous day. 5 people are on board the vessel, which reportedly carries enough oxygen in reserve to last up to 96 hours. Rescuers say that operations are challenging due to the remote search area. The trip to the underwater wreckage is part of an 8-day package offered by OceanGate Expeditions at $250,000 a seat. The Titanic sank 600 kilometers off the coast of Newfoundland after colliding with an iceberg in 1912 and lies 3,800 meters below the ocean's surface. An estimated 1,500 people were killed. Turning over to the West Bank now, at least 5 Palestinians have been killed and over 90 wounded amid fighting with Israeli military in the occupied West Bank. Over 20 of the wounded are in serious condition. Local media outlets report that the hours-long clash at the Jenin refugee camp on Monday came after Israeli soldiers entered the camp to arrest 2 suspects. The Israeli military said its forces were attacked during this raid, and several Israeli soldiers were injured. Israeli military helicopter gunships were also used in the clash. It's the first time in decades that combat helicopters were used in the West Bank. Now, citizens of Switzerland have voted to pass a net zero climate law. The referendum on Sunday saw over 59% of voters back the government's plan to shift from fossil fuels to renewable energy and reach zero emissions by 2050. Backers of the plan say it's necessary, as the Alpine country will be hit hard by climate change and is already seeing the effects in the Alps. Last year, Swiss glaciers lost more than 6% of their volume. Scientists consider a loss of 2% to be extreme. The referendum was triggered after the bill was opposed by the right-wing Swiss People's Party. It argued that the bill would increase electricity prices as the country relies heavily on imported fossil fuels. And finally, people in Rome will soon be able to walk near the spot where Julius Caesar met his end. It comes as local authorities are set to open a new walkway on Tuesday at the Central Lago Argentina Square. According to historical accounts, the Roman dictator was stabbed to death there in 44 BC as part of a plot by a group of senators, including his friend Brutus. The ancient site also hosts 4 temples below the city's modern street level, all of which were only viewable from behind barriers. But that's set to change with the new ground-level walkway at the site that was discovered and excavated in the 1920s. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. On Monday, regions under heat advisories sweltered throughout the day under that dazzling sunshine and into the night. Well, today's gray skies are very welcomed with much hope for relief on the way this afternoon with some rain in the forecast. Skies remain partly sunny, then rain starts from Jeju, Chungcheongdo and Jeollado provinces in the afternoon, gradually spreading nationwide overnight before letting up from tomorrow in the west. 10 to 60 millimeters of rain is in the forecast, along with thunder and lightning, and mountainous regions on Jeju could see heavier showers. Now, afternoon highs are 2 to 5 degrees, lower than yesterday, hovering around the norms in most parts. The air quality will be decent nationwide all day today. Tomorrow is the summer solstice, and afternoon highs will go down even further tomorrow to 25 in Seoul. Then on Thursday, central regions can expect a passing rain. Also, there will not be any major temperature hikes for the rest of the week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of the day.